Hey everyone, welcome back to Steve's View. 20 years ago, former Vice President Al Gore released a documentary called An Inconvenient Truth. For millions of Americans, it wasn't just another political film. It was a warning about the future. Rising sea levels, more extreme weather, melting ice caps, entire ecosystems under threat. The message was clear. Climate change wasn't some distant possibility. It was happening, and if humanity failed to act, the consequences could be catastrophic. At the time, that message changed the conversation. Climate change moved from scientific journals into mainstream politics. Schools began teaching it more extensively. News organizations covered it constantly. Businesses incorporated it into their long-term planning. Governments around the world started discussing large-scale climate policies. 2 decades later, I think it's fair to ask an uncomfortable question. What have we learned? Not just about climate science itself, but about the way we've talked about climate change, the policies we've adopted, and the fears we've passed on to the next generation. Let me be clear from the beginning. Climate change is real. The overwhelming majority of climate scientists agree that the planet has warmed over the past century and that human activity plays a significant role. This shouldn't be controversial. It isn't a conspiracy. It isn't a hoax. But acknowledging that climate change is real doesn't automatically answer a much harder question. What should we do about it? Unfortunately, this is where the conversation often breaks down. If you question the effectiveness of certain climate policies, some people immediately accuse you of denying science. On the other hand, if you support efforts to reduce emissions, others assume you want to destroy the economy and eliminate modern lifestyles. Most Americans don't fit neatly into either camp. Most people want clean air and a healthy environment. They also want affordable energy, stable employment, and economic opportunity. They understand that protecting the planet matters. They also understand that families struggling to pay their bills can't simply absorb endless increases in energy costs. The problem is that we've allowed a complex policy discussion to become a culture war. Over the past 20 years, public discussions about climate change have often relied on fear. We've repeatedly heard that we only have a few years left to save the planet. We've been told that humanity stands on the brink of irreversible catastrophe. Fear can be a powerful motivator. It can push people to pay attention to issues they might otherwise ignore. But fear has limits. When every prediction becomes apocalyptic, people eventually stop listening. If worst-case scenarios don't unfold exactly as originally presented, trust begins to erode. Skepticism grows. People start questioning not only the messaging, but the institutions delivering it. That doesn't mean the underlying problem disappears. It simply means the public becomes less willing to support proposed solutions. And trust matters. If leaders ask citizens to accept higher costs, change long-established habits, or support major policy shifts, they have an obligation to be honest about both the benefits and the trade-offs involved. Because there are trade-offs. Modern civilization was built on abundant and affordable energy. Fossil fuels helped power economic growth, expand transportation networks, increase agricultural productivity, and lift billions of people out of poverty. At the same time, burning those fuels contributes to greenhouse gas emissions. Both statements are true. Recognizing one doesn't require denying the other. This is particularly important when discussing developing countries. For billions of people around the world, the most urgent concern isn't what average temperatures might look like 50 years from now. It's gaining access to reliable electricity, healthcare, refrigeration, clean water, and economic opportunity. Climate policies designed for wealthy nations may not always be practical elsewhere. This doesn't mean environmental concerns should be ignored. It means solutions need to account for human realities. In the United States, many working-class Americans feel that climate discussions sometimes overlook their everyday struggles. It's difficult to persuade someone worried about rent, groceries, and healthcare that dramatically higher utility bills represent progress. These concerns aren't irrational. They're human. And if climate advocates dismiss them outright, they risk alienating the very people whose support is necessary for meaningful change. At the same time, pretending climate change doesn't exist is equally irresponsible. Communities across America have experienced devastating hurricanes, wildfires, floods, and droughts. While no single weather event can be blamed entirely on climate change, changing environmental conditions create genuine risks that societies must prepare for. The question isn't whether challenges exist. The question is how we respond. Maybe part of the answer lies in shifting our focus from fear to resilience. Throughout history, human beings have faced enormous challenges: disease outbreaks, natural disasters, food shortages, economic upheaval. Again and again, our greatest successes have come through innovation. We didn't improve public health by giving up on cities. We built better sanitation systems. We didn't feed growing populations by accepting widespread famine. We developed more productive agricultural methods. We didn't stop traveling because transportation created new risks. We engineered safer technologies. The same principle may apply to climate change. Advanced nuclear energy could provide massive amounts of low-carbon electricity. Improvements in battery technology may help address the limitations of renewable energy storage. Investments in infrastructure can make communities more resilient to floods, storms, and extreme temperatures. Agricultural innovation can improve food security in changing environments. Human creativity remains one of our greatest resources. Perhaps the biggest mistake we've made is allowing climate discussions to become exercises in despair. An entire generation has grown up hearing that they may inherit an unlivable planet. Terms like climate anxiety have entered mainstream vocabulary. Many young people genuinely fear that the future holds only decline. We should take those fears seriously. But we should also remember something equally important. Human beings are remarkably adaptable. Our ancestors overcame challenges that once seemed impossible. They didn't succeed because they denied reality. They succeeded because they confronted reality with determination and ingenuity. Climate change presents difficult questions. There are no simple answers. Reasonable people can disagree about timelines, policies, costs, and priorities. But disagreement doesn't have to mean division. We can acknowledge scientific evidence without embracing fatalism. We can pursue environmental progress without ignoring economic consequences. We can support innovation without pretending technology alone will solve every problem. Most importantly, we can reject the false choice between prosperity and sustainability, because the future doesn't belong exclusively to optimists or pessimists. It belongs to problem solvers. 20 years after Time's An Inconvenient Truth, perhaps the most important lesson isn't that we cared too much about climate change, nor is it that we cared too little. Maybe the lesson is that fear, by itself, isn't enough. Fear can start a conversation, but hope sustains one. If we truly believe climate change is one of the defining challenges of our time, then we need discussions rooted in honesty rather than ideology. We need leaders willing to acknowledge uncertainty where uncertainty exists. We need policies that ordinary people can realistically support, and we need the confidence to believe that innovation remains possible. The world has changed dramatically over the past 20 years. Technology has advanced. Scientific understanding has improved. New solutions continue to emerge. The future isn't predetermined, and perhaps that's the message worth remembering. Climate change is real. Human ingenuity is real too. The choice before us isn't between panic and denial. It's whether we can approach this challenge with enough wisdom to balance environmental responsibility with human flourishing. Not through fear, not through slogans, but through clear thinking, open debate, and a shared commitment to building a future that is both sustainable and hopeful. Because the next generation deserves more than anxiety. They deserve solutions. And they deserve a reason to believe that tomorrow can still be better than today. Thanks for watching.